Let's talk Tanya for the 30th of Shevat. Over the last 2 days, we've been discussing the process of mivat when a person is suffering from emotional unresponsiveness, unable to generate feelings, excitement to serve God. So the process that the Alter Rebbe prescribes, based on the Zohar, is mivat is crushing the ego. So up until this point, we've talked about crushing the ego by contemplating one's essential lowliness, as we discussed yesterday, the fact that our default self is the animal soul. And today the Alter Rebbe continues, and he throws some more fuel on the fire, gives us some more thoughts to crush the ego. The Alter Rebbe suggests maybe consider all your thoughts, speech, and action from the day that you were born till today. Were they all l'shem shamayim? Were they all for the sake of heaven or not? And if not, and I think more often than not, the answer will be not. They were not always for the sake of heaven. That's another reason why to feel deflated in oneself. Then the Alter Rebbe moves on and says, analyze your dreams. Are your dreams holy or not? If your dreams aren't holy, what's the reason for that? Maybe it's because your soul isn't holy enough that when you're sleeping for it to go to the higher worlds and experience holy dreams. But let's stop here for a second. Let's take a breath, because obviously this is all difficult to digest. We spoke about this a little yesterday. This process of contemplating one's lowliness and crushing the ego, it doesn't seem very consistent with the general theme and way of Chassidus, which is living a life of joy, of happiness, of positive emotions, and entertaining thoughts that lead us to that place. So the first thing we have to remember, as we discussed previously, all of this is option B, not option A. In other words, this is do not do this unless absolutely necessary. What does necessary mean? Necessary means that you're experiencing this case of emotional numbness, and although you're trying to use your mind to change that, you're doing the meditation and the contemplation, it's not helping. That's number one. But there's another point over here. We discussed yesterday and we said that for the struggler, our default self is the animal soul. And that is true. But default self doesn't mean my essential self. It doesn't mean my deepest self. It doesn't mean my deeply and deepest held core values. For a Jewish person, the deepest me is the godly soul. How do we know that? Very simple. We spoke about this in the previous chapters. How Jewish people are ready to give up their life in order to stay connected to God. Where does that come from? What does that mean? That means that if you strip down to the very core, what is my deepest desire? My deepest desire actually is to be holy, to do what God wants, and to be connected to God. So there is the deepest me, my deepest core values, which are holy. But for whatever reason, that's not the default me. When I wake up in the morning, I don't feel those core values. It takes work for me to tap into and to connect to my deepest self. So that's number one. Default me is not necessarily the deepest me. Even the default me, which is the animal soul, that's also by design. God created me that way, and the reason why is because he wants me to struggle against my default self. And by doing so, as we also discussed in the previous chapters, that gives God incredible nachas, incredible pleasure. And usually, under normal circumstances, we are focused on one set of truths, meaning that my deepest self is godly and holy, and that even the fact that my default self is the animal soul is also by design in order to bring God pleasure. And those are thoughts that build me up. However, over here, we are specifically choosing to focus on another set of truths, which is that my default self is the animal soul. And why is that? Because we're trying to accomplish something over here. We're trying to accomplish the mivat, the crushing of the ego, because at this moment, that is what I need, because I'm feeling emotionally unresponsive. So this is simply a case where we have two sides of the coin and different truths. And in order to have a really balanced view of ourselves, we need all of these truths. And usually we're more focused on the positive side of things. But now, because we're trying to accomplish something very specific, for this brief period of time, we are going to focus on the other side, the thoughts that are actually going to crush our ego, and that is going to bring about a positive result. And then once we have that positive result, we've broken that numbness, then we can revert again to thinking all the positive thoughts and being in a state of positive emotions. Tomorrow, and tomorrow's Tanya, we are going to turn to yet another method of mivat, another method of breaking the ego.